Hey, so I want to post a video about what's happening with my neck. Um, so, Lyme and Bartonella and extended computer use. It's probably the Bartonella more than the Lyme. Uh, and and then also playing sports growing up throughout my whole life and all that. Damaged connective tissue all over my body, but then also my neck suffered a lot, and it got real bad. Using the computer. Um, and Then I was moving furniture, and then that aggravated it, I think, because the scalenes are tight in my neck. They're attached to the upper cervical vertebrae. I go to lift something up, and my shoulder drops down while holding something heavy, which yanks on my cervical vertebrae, which pulls them around. And the ligaments were already damaged from, you know, life. And and in combination with the Bartonella. And then so I get MRIs and such, and they don't show any problems because the Bartonella would um, damage the connective tissue sort of evenly because my body's just kind of like attacking the connective tissue. I don't know how it works. I don't know if it attacks if my immune system response is doing it, or if I'm pretty sure it's my immune response doing it, and not the actual bacteria damaging the connective tissue. I think they just live in it, and so my immune system's kind of evenly damaging the connective tissue throughout. So it's not like a tear. It's more just like turning my connective tissue into a sponge, like it's full of holes. So when I move around, I can move like normal. So like I'm moving and moving my head, right? Um, but when I do move, when strain is placed on my connective tissue, it starts to get hurt and get inflamed more quickly because think of it like connective tissue is just as wide. It's like imagine a rope that's the same dimensions as a normal rope, right? Like whatever, half an inch wide or whatever for this example. But say remove like 3/4 of the fibers. So it's the same dimensions, but it's a lot more thready. And so now when you put strain on the rope, there's a lot more tension on each individual fiber. So like if I'm holding a weight with my hand, my elbow will start to burn much quicker than another person's because there's much more strain on that connective tissue because it's not evenly distributed amongst. I mean, it's evenly distributed, but there's less fiber bearing the weight. So when you look at it on an MRI, you're like, oh, there's the fibers, and you just kind of see like the vague outline of like the ligament or the tendon. You can't really tell like how dense the fiber is because MRIs are like a shitty 90s cell phone camera. They really suck. I mean, they're really bad. Um, maybe 20 years from now, they'll be just as good as X-rays. You'll be able to like zoom in and see like individual cells and stuff like that. But like right now, like you can't do that. It's not even close. And I'm not exaggerating when I say it's like a bad 90s cell phone camera. Go look at an MRI and then go look at like a 1 megapixel picture or like half a megapixel. It's like that's about the same what it looks like. And a lot of neurosurgeons and a lot of people that use MRIs have said this. Um, so I've got this connective tissue that's weak, and so I've been using regenerative medicine to fix it, to grow more connective tissue, more fiber. Because what's happening is like I'll do regular movements, and where like a normal person after like 3 hours of these movements, they'd start to get some pain in their neck or something like that. Like whatever, doing the dishes or bending over to change a tire or whatever. But for me, it's like 1/10 of the time. You know, maybe 1/20th of the time. That because like the fibers are so crappy and they're so damaged. There's so few of them that it's like things start to burn and hurt much more quickly. So then I use my muscles to compensate, but like there's stabilizing muscles in the neck, like just for like sitting, like I sit up and I'm relaxed. Like I don't feel like my neck's tight at all. That's the stabilizers. But like if I'm like holding my head in a position or like holding it like that or holding, if I'm then that's you're using muscles that are involved in movement to like move your head around. But those muscles aren't meant to be clenched for long periods of time. They're for movement. So they're like your bicep. They're not like your bicep's not a stabilizer. It's for moving something, and then it's not for like holding a position for a long time. It's different kind of fibers. Um, so yeah, so that's why like nothing shows up on any imaging because there's nothing to see. The imaging's not good enough. Even digital motion X-ray, like my vertebrae is moving okay, right? Like it moves around, and I did have some significant. I had to overhang, decent amount of overhang in my upper cervical. It was like 4 or 5 millimeters. But problem is, like my connective tissue is just like so thin. It's not dense. It's not fibrous. So it tears easily, and it gets inflamed easily. But when it gets inflamed, it gets damaged throughout, right? So it's typically not just like a solid tear or just a tear in one spot. It tears all over. And also the bacteria causes immune response to damage it all over. So yeah, I think that about covers what's going on. So that's why like if I talk to like a neurosurgeon or something for like can I get a craniocervical fusion to get stability? They're like no, because like you can move your head, and I'm like yeah I can go like flexion extension, right? I can do that. I can't do it much. It really starts to burn and hurt. Um, it's really bad. So I need a craniocervical fusion to stabilize my upper cervical spine because my head's not being held on very well, and or a lot of regenerative therapy to really heal up and grow new ligaments and tendons. In addition to taking antibiotics and herbal remedies for getting rid of the Lyme bacteria. I don't know if I have any genetic stuff going on. I might. Um, but I met a lot of people with, not a lot. I mean, I met 5 people with the same problem I have. They have Lyme and Bartonella, and their connective tissue is weak throughout their body. And the neck is commonly a problem because you're holding a 10-pound weight on it all the time. So if your connective tissue goes throughout your whole body, like your neck's probably going to have issues. Whereas, like, maybe your wrist doesn't have issues because you're not using your wrist all the time, or you're not using your ankle all the time. But your head's like you got this big weight on the end of a series of joints, and it's more prone to injury, especially if you're sitting at a computer for a while or if you fall or something like that. I mean, my hip was so bad I was screaming, but I did some rehab, and the hip is a much more simple joint, and I don't have any pain in my hip. But there's a lot of ligaments. If it was just tendons, it'd be a different story because one, I could just keep exercising, the tendons would keep growing and growing. But ligaments are take longer and more difficult to grow through exercise. Although they can, of course, get stronger. Um, so I am doing physical therapy. I'm but regenerative therapy is not covered by insurance, and yeah, so that's pretty much why it's like doctors, people like say I should get a craniosacral fusion. It's like I'm fine. If you do any MRI on me, you're not gonna find any problems. You're not gonna find issues in rotational CT. You're not gonna find issues on flexion extension MRI, rotational MRI. You're not gonna see any issues because my neck moves normally, but it's just the fibers are barely holding on to things. So, craniocervical fusion.
This is
Echo.
a reminder.
Echo.
Make
Stop. Craniocervical fusion would stabilize my upper cervical, and it would be a lot easier to do injections around because then you'd have like then there'd be a little more strain on my like C2 C3 area, right? Because that would be sort of where I'm bending my head, and that's because C craniocervical fusion C0 to C2. So C2 C3 would be now the joint that moves when I move my head. That'd be the top that moves because the rest would be one solid piece essentially. I don't think they actually fuse the bone, but they put metal on your head to your C2 to hold it all. So so C2, C3 would be a problem area, but it's a lot easier to get injections in my C2, C3. I could do all the ligaments throughout there, make them really tough, put stem cells, put PRP in there, and make them strong. But I don't have like, $45,000 to keep getting PICLs. So I'm basically screwed unless I get money. Um, I'm not making this video primarily to ask for money. I'm just saying like I think this is very important for people to understand that this is a thing that can happen if you have Lyme disease or if you have a genetic condition that causes problems, like maybe you have EDS. I don't have EDS, but it's kind of like having EDS, like my connective tissue is not functioning, right? So, but at least with EDS, you can see if someone does flexion extension, you be like, oh, that vertebrae is moving all over the place. Mine's being held in place, which is weak. So I don't have extra stretchy fibers. I have less fibers. So they're more easily damaged and inflamed, and in turn I can't hold my head up because then I have to compensate with the muscles because if I keep pushing through the pain of the ligaments, it will damage them, and I've done that and severely damaged them. And I was in bed for 10 months. I'm still mostly bedbound. Um, but then so I compensate with the muscles, but then they get tired. It's like just pick up a weight and just hold it above your head. You know, how long can you do that? You can't do that very long. Before your shoulder starts to have some major issues. So, I could get up and go to the bathroom and make some food, a little bit of food, but I have to rest because it's so tiring. So I think my neck's stronger now than it's ever been. But it's just, you just can't hold weight like that with these muscles. Um, and the stabilizers get overworked because the ligaments aren't doing as much. Um, I don't know how the relationship between stabilize. Like I don't have like a map, a heat map of like when are the stabilizers in use and not in use. But when the stabilizers are in use, so are the ligaments to some degree, and then the ligaments start to burn. So then I engage those muscles, and those muscles start to burn, and then I have to rest because both either the ligaments are burning or the muscles are burning. So even if the stabilizers are working fine, there's still some ligament function or muscle function, and both of those are burning, and so I can't. I have to stop or I'll damage the tissue because the movement muscles I'll damage. Like they have tendons, and the muscle fibers get torn, broken down, and the tendons get broken down. So yeah. So that's me. That's why doctors are like, they look at me and they're like, you don't need a craniocervical fusion. And it's like, no, you're wrong. I do. And it would fix my problem being able to hold my head up for sure. I mean, it wouldn't totally fix it, but I still have issues like lower down because all the connective tissue in my body's weaker. But it would help a lot because if I just relax my head like a normal person, my head's just like I'm having to like hold it in place all the time because the C1's just kind of not doing anything up there. Like I've put myself in a mental state where I'm like, let me just put myself in my shoes before this all happened and just move around like normal as if nothing's wrong. And my hair is just all over the place. Like it does not stay up. It's just I am making it stay up the whole time. So that it would help that a ton. It wouldn't obviously I'd still have issues with C2 to C7. I'd have issues with the rest of my spine. I'd have issues with my elbows. I'd have issues with my hip. But my elbows, my hips, my knees, my ankles, I can do exercise and really strengthen those. But my neck's my the spine's a different story, So I had to keep trying to raise money for regenerative medicine because fusion is not. Doctors don't understand that this is even a problem. I mean, they're never taught this in school that this could even happen. And I don't have like video evidence. I have Dr. Pappas in Tampa when he injected my ligaments in my neck. He said every single ligament, when he injected them, the fluid went in without resistance. And the only way that can physically happen is if there is space in the volume that's not taken up by fiber. It's just a basic physics problem. And that means that those fibers don't exist or they're thinner. But they probably don't exist because they're damaged. There's probably not like a variety of thicknesses of individual fibers. It's probably just more fibers or less fibers. So, um, so that is a thing that I have someone who's that's what he does every day of his life when he works anyway. He injects ligaments and tendons, and he knows what a good one feels like, and he knows what a bad one feels like. And all of mine, he said, feel like someone who's been in a very bad car crash. So that's the level of damage I'm working with in my neck. So probably in the rest of my body as well. Though I regularly exercise my ankles and my knees and my hips. So I'm constantly like making those tendons and ligaments stronger. It's harder for me to exercise my neck because it is so weak and damaged to begin with. So, yeah. So this is what's going on with me, and I've never heard anybody talk about this kind of thing. I've never heard anyone explain it. Never. I mean, obviously, those people I know that are like me are probably the exact same. Like they have Lyme and Bartonella, probably their connective tissue in their body's the same as mine. And that's why when they get a digital motion X-ray, it doesn't look that bad. But they still have a lot of burning and they can't hold their head up and stuff like that. Um, my digital motion X-ray definitely still showed ligament damage all over the place. It wasn't inaccurate. Like transverse, longitudinal, posterior, anterior, alar. Um, I imagine there's more. There's the ligament damage is lower down. It's harder to see because your neck doesn't move as much as the top of your head. Um, but obviously that's all. It's all damaged. But the top is probably the worst because that attaches to the skull, so it has the most force on it. Yeah, so that's what's going on with me, and I think other people are suffering this way and can't get help for the same reason. So